We good? All right. Call this meeting to order. Good evening, everyone, on this Tuesday night, 1st of November. We will turn our attention, please, to Councilmember Hiller, who will introduce the invocation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Tonight's invocation will be by an associate pastor at Central Park Christian Church. For those who don't get an immediate picture, Central Park Christian is the church that is across the street from Central Park Community Center at 16th and Clay. Central Park Christian was established as a mission church by Northland Christian Church in 2005. Today, there's an active congregation of about 150, most of whom live within a mile of the church. They contribute to the neighborhood by holding children's programs on Wednesday and Thursday evenings. They have a program they call the Arrow program, which is a broadly defined recovery and addiction program where all are welcome to, as Pastor said, do life by working together through any issues that they have. They have an average of attendance of about 30 and sometimes as many as 50 at those sessions. They also do teen programs on Sunday afternoons. Most recently, that is the organization that purchased the property at 1600 Clay, which you may recall had multiple fires, and eventually the city had to demolish. They're currently taking care of the property and are looking at ways that can be developed by the church and community to benefit the neighborhood. And with that, to give our invocation, please welcome Elijah White, Central Park Christian's youth pastor, who actually grew up in Central Topeka at 15th and Fillmore. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here and be able to represent our church and my God, and that'll open us in prayer. Father, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for every member, every man and woman that you've nominated to this committee, Father. Pray that tonight that you lead them with wisdom and unity, Father, and guide their thoughts and their hearts and their minds as they move forward in this meeting. Pray for specifically our Central Park neighborhood, Father, that you just work in every heart, every child, every woman, every man in that neighborhood, and that you also bring unity to that neighborhood, Father, and love and peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk would take the roll.
Deputy Mayor Duncan.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Aquila.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Emerson. Kale.
Here.
Nager.
Here.
Dobler.
Here.
All right, and Council District 9 is now vacant. That was effective today, so we have 7 present.
Thank you. Appointments.
A is a committee appointment recommending the reappointment of Jonathan Sublette to the Affordable Housing Review Committee for a term ending December 31, 2024. B is a committee appointment recommending the reappointment of Harry Christian to the Affordable Housing Review Committee for a term ending December 31, 2024. C is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Sean Smith to the City of Topeka Board of Electrical Appeals for a term ending December 31, 2024. D is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Walter Showmaker to the Topeka Board of Zoning Appeals to fill an unexpired term ending December 31, 2025. E is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Bill Nager to the Board of Mechanical Examiners for an unexpired term ending December 31, 2024.
I have a motion.
Moved. Second.
All right. A motion and a second. We good? All right.
Council members Hiller.
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Hale.
Yes.
Nager.
I proudly abstain.
Dobler.
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
We have 6 yes, motion carries.
I believe Bill Nager is here, if he would stand, and if anyone else is, please stand. And maybe no one else. That was the only name I knew was here. So with that, thank you very much for your continued service. With that, we have one presentation this evening. It is on the Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance involving our Mowing Partners program. With that, I'm just going to turn it over to Council Members Hiller and Councilmember Valdivia Alcala. They're going to take it from there.
If the folks who have been invited to be part of this presentation would come forward. Stephanie, Myron, Irma, come on up, all the way up with us. Face the audience. We're here this evening to celebrate the partners and the activity from our first Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance mowing season. As I think you all know, but just in case, that Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance is a 5-year initiative working on both policies and procedures as well as self-help and community engagement with a goal of improving both the appearance and the health and safety of our city and its residents, with as much as possible residents and owners taking care of their own issues and related, not requiring city intervention at all. We expect to need the full 5 years to get all of the policies and procedures updated and fully established. We are hoping that it will only take 3 summers to get our community better engaged in taking care of their own properties and helping each other where there is a need. This summer was the first action summer with mowing as the action goal. We engaged a variety of partners and ultimately were able to count more than 230 properties mowed that otherwise might not have been, as well as countless mows that happened because of the publicity and energy. We are really proud of our city. We celebrated the end of the season with a public event on Evergy Plaza on October 15 and are eternally grateful for the partners and staff who made it happen. We want to recognize them today publicly and especially with you, the council, who has supported this program so well as the public who follow so closely what we do. So with that, I will hand off to my co-chair, Christina Valdivia Alcala, District 2.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So we will be talking about our primary funding partners right now. The City of Topeka, the entire council, as well as support from the Public Health and Safety Committee. The Greater Topeka Partnership included not only co-funding, which was vital and integral for the Karen Black study on the policy side, but active assistance in planning and arrangements for our plaza celebration. And we have here as a representative, Stephanie Wilhelm. On to the mowing partners. Omni Circle, absolutely epic, and kicked it with over 200 mows, primarily in Central Park neighborhood. They used a volunteer approach, a neighbor helping neighbor approach, and it worked. And so we have here today Myron Thomas. Gil Carter Initiative focused on pay what you can approach, primarily in the Highland Acres neighborhood. Ms. Emma Forbes is here as representative. T-Squared, Tommy Thompson, offered private business backup for a trustworthy, low fixed price, affordable mow anywhere if someone didn't have someone to hire. We also want to say thank you to Andrew Colbeck, Jim Huetter, and Ray Toyne, whom we know picked up names from our United Way partner waiting list and did volunteer individual mows. Without volunteers and continued volunteers, this program cannot succeed. So we need you to think about what y'all want to do next year. Evergy Plaza End of Season Celebration event donors, Shendel Lawn and Landscape, a major event sponsor and major prize donor, 2 lawnmowers and a trimmer. That may not sound like a lot, but when you don't have a mower, it means a lot. Also, together, over 60 drawing prizes for adults and and for children as well. These prizes came from Home Depot, Lowe's, Westlake Ace Hardware, Skinner's Nursery, and 3 anonymous donors. Thank you, anonymous donors. Quick thanks to our vendor partners, Big E's Food Truck, Shawnee County Library, and K-State Extension. They provided information and kids activities. Garcia's Lawn Care, he loaned us the mowers for the photo ops. Then he brought his whole family down and had booth space. Staff, what can we say about staff? We can't say enough about how much they helped in this initiative. We didn't want to make them come out at night because we know they work hard during the day, but we do want to shout out their names. This is just the ones who were involved with the mowing program part. Gretchen, Spiker, and Taylor Schley. I'm so sorry. Okay.
They're actually here.
Wonderful in their communications part. Monique Glaudet, wonderful at her community engagement. Hannah Ulrich, she is the one for project management, and thank her so much for helping put this together. Leah Bowling, without you, how could we even have these mowers present to go out and do the mowing? Thank you for helping us put that together. And our own Liz Toyne, who absolutely worked her butt off on this. She is the City Council Executive Admin, and we want to thank her too. I do want to say that we want to make sure that Omni can speak a few words right now, because without Omni, even though there were so many people involved in this, without Omni, this project would not have been the success in its first year that it is. And we just wanted Myron to say a few words. Come on. Say a few words about how you helped make this happen.
What happened?
We started out with cutting lawns for free for the neighbors in Central Park. A lot of them were coming up saying, "What are you doing? You know, I don't have the money to pay for you to cut the lawn." And we told them we was volunteering. We was in a program that the city council had put together, and we was cutting lawns for the disadvantaged in the area of Central Park. Once we started, some of the neighbors started coming out, asking us if we wanted water, what can they do to help. And some of the other neighbors started coming out and started cutting their lawns too. So we kind of made it a fun thing every Monday and Friday. The next week it was Monday and Saturday. We started at 3:30. We didn't know when to quit because we was having so much fun. But thank you so much. But volunteer, we do need volunteers in this city real bad. From the morning service to the food drive, to even the cleanup in your neighborhood. If you want to start a program in your neighborhood, get with us. We'd be glad to support you, help you any way we can. But thank you.
Thank you so much. Folks already touched on the fact that, and I did too, that this is the first year. If people want to volunteer, the model's there, it worked. Myron said that, you know, they would come back, they'd knock on doors, and people would say yes. They'd say, well, we're coming back on Monday to mow, and when they got there, it was mowed. We had a lot of people that called to see if it was a program, and it's really not a program. The idea is to get the community engaged and not have the city in the middle of it. And what happened was a lot of people, once they checked it out, and then they said, well, maybe I'll just hire the kid down the block, or I know somebody, and they got those lawns mowed without us needing to be in the middle of it at all. And so thank you all so much. And if people do want to get involved, now is the time to start thinking about whether you'd like to adopt a block or a neighborhood. And as Myron said, their Omni Circle were great mentors and supporters, and they're happy to provide some coaching and experience on how it went this time. Thank you all. We're really proud. Did you get the photo?
All right. Thank you. The clerk would read the consent agenda.
A is approval of the resolution and adoption agreement for the State of Kansas Public Employees Retirement System Supplemental Defined Contribution Plan. B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade, allowing and approving city expenditures for the period of August 27 to September 30, 2022, and enumerating said expenditures therein. C is a resolution introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade, authorizing initiation of eminent domain proceedings to acquire an easement for a stormwater improvement project in South Topeka. D are minutes of the regular meeting of October 18, 2022, and there's one cereal malt beverage application for K Fast Track 2, located at 1401 Southwest Hunting Street, and staff is recommending approval.
I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second.
All right, council members Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Duncan,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hiller.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
With that, we move on to the action items. Action item A. Clerk would read.
A is a public hearing and an ordinance introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade relating to the vacation of the south 8 feet of public utility easement along the north side of property located at 2880 Southeast California Avenue, accepting out an 8 by 16 foot portion needed for maintenance and repair of the city public asset.
This is a public hearing. Anyone who would like to come forward and speak to this issue may do so now. I'll say that several times to make sure you heard me and we don't miss anybody. There's your first warning. All right, second time, if anyone wants to come up to this issue only, you can come up now. Doesn't look like we have anyone here. Oh, the police chief? Yeah, he's back there. He just likes McDonald's. With that, I think I can close the hearing. Yep. All right, then I will consider this hearing closed. With that, this does not require any disclosures from the governing body. If you'd like some information, I can call up Mr. Fyander or city manager, whoever wants to provide some information as to what this entails.
Director Finder?
Yes, good evening. This action item is simply a vacation of a public easement that's required to facilitate the use of it for private purposes. The McDonald's that is built there, I believe, is going to be using it for their the grease trap. Thank you. And then we'll retain a manhole there. But since the city has abandoned the line and it's being used for private purposes, it just has to be vacated for public use. So this will help complete the development.
Any questions or comments from the governing body? I will, if this came up, I'll just put this out there for all our items. Even though we are now a governing body of 9 for temporarily and not a governing body of 10, these things still require 6 votes. The charter and our ordinances don't change the voting thresholds on any items. With that, any comments or questions? Any motions?
Move to approve.
Councilmember Hiller. A motion to approve. Seconded by Councilmember Kell. No more discussion, just making sure. All right. Clerk?
Council members Ortiz,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Duncan,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
and Valdivia Acala.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
All right. Action item B, if the clerk would read.
B is a resolution introduced by the members of the Transient Guest Tax Committee comprised of council members Sylvia Ortiz, Tony Emerson, and Mike Lesser, recommending renewal of the contract with Visit Topeka Incorporated for tourism and convention services.
Someone from staff or the committee like to comment on this?
Councilwoman Ortiz was leading the commission on that. If not, we've got Sean Dixon available if there's actually any questions.
Councilmember Ortiz, anything you'd like to say or add?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. This was one of the best committees I've ever been on. We had one meeting, we had one vote, and we got the job done and got it returned back to the council. This is just a renewal of the contract for another 3 years with Visit Topeka. As we can see, Visit Topeka is thinking outside of the box, and they're doing a lot of good things. It's a breath of fresh air, as many of us mentioned in our committee meeting. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve this. It's probably the fastest resolution and the quickest return back to you guys, and I'd like to keep the ball rolling.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? No? Oh, Visit Topeka doesn't get their minute. Oh, there we go. Sean's back there. Oh my gosh, really? I can't get this out. All right, are there any questions, comments from the governing body? All right, well, if not, then clerk would take the roll or the
Council
vote.
members Kell,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Duncan,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
and Ortiz.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
All right. Action item C, if the clerk would read.
C is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade concerning council districts amending Section 215090 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original section.
City Manager?
City Attorney Stanley?
You guys heard the presentation last week on the redistricting. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Otherwise, if you vote and approve the ordinance, it will go into effect January 1st. It is a home rule ordinance, so only 5 votes are required, and the mayor does not vote.
Questions, comments from the governing body? No? Yes, Councilmember Kell.
I move that we adopt the Plan A, is it?
Yes, Plan A.
Yeah, and it is the one that I saw that most of the people have recommended through via emails or surveys by a vast majority. So I move that we adopt Plan A.
Do we have a second? Councilmember Hiller seconds the motion. Any discussion on Plan A, conversation, concerns? Councilmember Hiller.
Just a brief comment. I think we shared some of these comments last time, but I think the commission did a really good job. The staff did as well. I mean, they started with 2 alternatives just to kind of see how hard a task it was. At one point had 5, narrowed it to this one, and with good quality input and discussion. So I just want to give them some kudos again, as well as the staff for the process. Now, again, I think they got done earlier than some have, so we're on a roll tonight.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I too want to thank the commission and all of the members that participated. I would like to say 10 years ago, I inherited a part of Oakland, which I've been really proud of. I was there on that boat when the fence got put around the Chase football field. I was there when several sidewalks went in. I was there when the banners that just got hung were talked about and voted on. So it's kind of a bittersweet for me, but I understand this has nothing to do with NIA boundaries. It has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with precincts. It has everything to do with the numbers of our constituents and consensus. I'm sorry, and it has everything to do with that. And so that's just how it goes. I was up a little bit. District 1 and District 2 were down a little bit. So it's just evens out the playing field. So I want to make that perfectly clear because I know that there's been some discussion about this, that, or the other. So anyway, it's been a fun ride with Oakland. I will continue to be there if you need my support or you need my help. And it was neat to see all the things that came about with different members that have been in and out. So I continue to look for them to continue to do what they're doing, and that's just improving Oakland. I was going down Branner Bridge today at Branner and Seward, and I thought about the Welcome Oakland sign, and when they talked about getting that sign up. So it's just nice when we talk about it, we read about it, but it's also nice when we really see it. So with that, I will support that. Thank you, Ms. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anyone else? Councilmember Dobler?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to thank the commission. Pardon? Your mic was off. Sorry. Green light's on. Is it working? All right. I'd like to especially thank Jeff Wagaman, who was my appointee, did a great job, as I'm sure all of them did. I was on this commission 10 years ago. I know how much work staff does, so I want to thank them, the GIS folks and others that were involved. It takes a lot of work to get to this point. It's a pretty easy boat, but it takes work to get there, so thank you.
I lost a few constituents. I'm going to miss you. But again, I think I said this before, they moved the other side, and I'm like a block and a half, I realized, from the line. Councilmember Doble and I would be over there fighting for that chair today, I guess. I don't know how that works, but it was a rough process in the sense that you have to make those decisions. And so, again, as everyone else said, thank you to everyone who did that hard work on our behalf. With that, if there's no other comments, I will tell the clerk to take a vote, please.
Okay, council members Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Duncan,
Yes.
council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akla,
Yes.
and Ortiz,
Yes.
and Kell.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
Thank you. With that, where are we at? Item E, clerk would read.
D is a resolution introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade approving the 2023 award recommendations for the Topeka Dreams Neighborhood Improvement Initiatives Program.
It was D. She knew what I meant. That's why she's a good city clerk. City Manager.
So we've addressed this in previous council meetings, so we're ready to adopt. If we have any questions, Bianca Burnett is available to discuss. This is carryover from past.
Councilmember Valdivia Alcala.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't like doing this at the last minute, but I am because I received these emails very late this afternoon. This has to do with, and it's my district, so they're going to send me the email, Historic North Topeka West, NIA. The NIA president, who is also part of the CAC, Laura Pedrozzani, wanted to express her concern about 2 projects being supported for funding. Historic Holiday Park project was recommended by the CAC, but not the city. In addition, the $100,000 recommended to be awarded to Highcrest is for the study only, not the project North Topeka West, only submitted 1 application for much-needed road repairs, and it is not being funded. We are the only NIA to not have funding recommended from any of the DREAMS project levels. She is stating that she and the NIA feel strongly that utilizing the funding for road repairs needed now is a much better use of funds than a project that the city itself does not recommend, and a study that could go nowhere. My sense about that is she's not so much banging on that others got it. My sense is that there was some additional information I needed from her, so I emailed her back and she responded this afternoon. As a member of the CAC, I made my objections pretty clear in the meeting. I was told that council could change their recommendations, so I'm asking that you please share this to council. I just don't think these spreadsheets really tell the whole story. In addition, I see on the staff PowerPoint that Dreams 2 has $1.25 million available, but only recommends $800,000 in funding. She is requesting if it would be possible to suggest that the additional funding be used towards the only NIA that submitted an application that was not funded, which is Historic North Topeka West. In addition, the reason why we only submitted one application was because the city was not prepared to move forward on our other identified projects for stormwater solutions. And I do know that she had been working with former Public Works Director Braxton Copley on that. So again, this was very last minute when it was sent to me. I don't know if there's anything that can be done or not as we are getting ready to vote on this, but I would just like to verify, look, if it is in fact true that they were the only ones that were not funded out of all the NIA applications.
So, yes, Councilmember Valdivia Alcala, North Topeka West was the only NIA that did not receive a recommendation, and that was due to the scoring process. All applications were scored by a body of their peers, the Citizen Advisory Council, and their application was not one of the highest scored applications.
Okay. Again, my apologies for bringing this at the last minute, but I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't bring it forward.
Yes.
The other thing is it true that there is a 1.25 and only 800K was awarded?
That is correct, and that is in the documents provided to the City Council, as well as public documents that have been provided for the projects that were recommended. In the resolution that is outlined on page 2, lines 28 through 32.
Okay. And also, can you tell me, help me just understand, because I know the DREAMS process is relatively new. It's, at least to me, it's still relatively new. And how many people, is it CAC that does the scoring itself?
It is the CAC that does the scoring.
Okay, and obviously you don't score, you're not part of the committee of your own projects.
That's correct.
Okay, and how many, what is the point system based on?
So the point system is based on total scores. So each application is scored by those that are eligible to score the applications, and then those scores are totaled for that category. And the neighborhoods or the projects that had the highest scores were listed at the top. There was some discussion at the Citizen Advisory Council meeting about the recommendations that were made on October 5th. And as I've stated, I certainly understand the concern, but the Citizen Advisory Council recommendations, the score for the North Topeka West was not one of the highest scores for that process.
And how is it determined whether money will, if the full amount is used versus holding some back? Who decides that?
So Councilman, the way the project was aligned, initially I believe there was a limit of 4 projects. And the reason for that 4 was that's what we felt we could handle and be efficient and get it done. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we actually went to 5.
That's correct.
So we actually, after consultation with staff, we agreed to take on a 5th one. That still didn't come to the total dollar amount, and so that's why there's some money left over.
Okay, and how many applications were there in total?
There were, I'm sorry, I'd have to go back and look on.
If I would have received this earlier, I would have emailed y'all.
I appreciate that.
No, that's okay. I know there were like 36 total for all 3, so I have to go back and double check.
Okay, so 36, about 36 applications. Y'all went down to 5. You picked 5.
Yes, and there were 9 in the Dreams 2 category that she applied for, or that the North Topeka West NIA applied for.
Okay. So what this has to do with city manager more than only 5 looked good enough for the CAC, this is as much as the city's bandwidth can handle at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
And do we anticipate that there's going to be that limited capability, right? I mean, there's going to be so many that are going to be in this pool, and this is how it's going to often play out.
We would anticipate that at this point.
Okay, and with a project that is not recommended by the city, but yet supported by the CAC, is there anything within the guidelines or bylaws of the CAC relationship with the city that would hinder that from happening? In other words, if the CAC wants it and the city doesn't recommend it, if they have the votes and the scoring to do it, then that's fine.
So, I'm sorry, in this case, the project that we're discussing was actually a project that the city didn't have any issues with the project per se. It just wasn't one of the highest scored projects, and so the Citizen Advisory Council made the recommendation for those, the 5 highest scored applications to receive funding based on that. It wasn't that there was necessarily an issue with the project. It was just more of how the scoring process worked out.
So I can give you an example. One of the applications, and maybe this particular application was actually for an alley. The alley was not currently paved. It's chat, it's rock. And our current city policy right now is that if it's a chat-lined alley, we don't go in and pave those. That's just been trying not to increase the amount of pavement there.
Right.
That's a policy that has absolutely nothing to do with the DREAMS program. And I think that's this particular situation to where one of the approved projects actually goes outside of bounds for our normal public works policies.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And again, I would say this is nothing to diminish the process. I mean, I think forever, the CAC continues to be that vital link. This is not wanting to come and upend the process at all or question something that you all have given reasons to me that makes sense. It had to be brought forth because we know Laura is a tireless advocate for historic North Topeka West and how much they have done without for decades and decades and decades. But thank you for that, and I'm good with these answers. And so there was going to be the consideration to, utilize excess monies, but there's no way, shape, or form I'm going to do that. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you.
City Manager, explain what happens, since we've talked about excess funds, there's no such thing really, but that gap, what happens to those? Do they carry over to next year? Do we leave them open? I mean, what happens when there's a difference like that?
I will tell you, Deputy Mayor, that I don't know that we anticipated excess funds, and so I don't have a direct answer for you as far as anticipation. Right now, nothing would happen to those. They don't actually carry over.
Okay.
That's certainly a recommendation that we could entertain for next go-round.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be good to have a plan so that people know what we're doing with that money and where it ends up. And I'd like to know where it's going to end up.
Well, in this particular case, it just would not be issued.
Sure, because it's all bonds.
That's right. So we would not bond for it.
Yeah, okay. Great. Either Councilmember Hiller?
Well, I want to support the process and appreciate, the work that everybody did. It is new, and it's interesting to me to see that the money was unspent, because one of the concerns about the old SOAR program was you had to spend the money, and sometimes people were looking for projects just to get it all done, and we didn't want that to happen again. So to say, I think every one of the categories says that the projects can spend up to X amount of money, with the idea that we didn't want to spend it just to spend it. So it's interesting. I'm assuming that there'll be sort of a debrief with the CAC and staff after it, since this is the first year. But it really, because we got some feedback about park money too, and that may be something people want to address further. But I think that it looks like it went per guidelines and went pretty well. It's not easy to do. So I know it was a long meeting.
Councilmember Valdivia-Accola? Say go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the whole thing about the old sort versus this new dreams, my whole take on that is, you spend the 1.7 million and the 300,000 or whatever it is. We know that the need is out there. Now, how it may come through in the application process or how it may not come through because we don't have community people in our NIAs or outside of our NIAs that are helping, write these grants, that's probably more of the issue. But we definitely know how many dollars need to go into our underserved communities. So I myself like the idea of carryover, but then we could end up getting ourselves into the same thing. We only have the capacity to do so many programs a year, and then you're just carrying over. But that's a good question, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
City Manager?
Deputy Mayor, I might actually applaud the leadership with CAC. I sat through that process, and I watched the scoring set up. And as they were tallying on the board, they did recognize that they had extra money to spend. There was some suggestions by attendees that they actually go to a lower scored project so they could spend more of that money, and in essence escalate it. And they held to their scoring system, which I greatly appreciated. Basically said, we were not going to look at spending it all, we're going to prioritize what was most important. So hats off to that leadership team.
Councilmember Ortiz?
Thank you. City Manager, although I can appreciate what you're saying, the people that did not get picked, are they being told why and what they can do the next time around so they know what to do the next time around? Are they being educated why their application didn't make it? Because I think that's a big part of it. Having been the president, yeah, you got some people that can do that. But if we're not going to educate them, because everybody should have a piece of the pie. And if we're not going to educate them and tell them why, I don't like the process. And that's with any process. That's not just picking this process. So, we can give them kudos, but if we're not digging in and educating them and really helping them, it's null and void to me.
So, Councilmember Ortiz, if I could address your question. So all of the recommendations for all of the projects, including the ones that did not get funding during this process, will be shared with those neighborhoods. And we're also going to start the process a lot earlier this time to hopefully help with some of those issues. I agree with what's being said. I don't like to see neighborhoods be left out of the process as well. So we want to make sure that neighborhoods know what it was that maybe could have helped them score a little bit higher, or maybe what it was that was left out of the applications. So we will be sure to share that information with them going forward.
If I may, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
If we could do that sooner than later, I think that would be more beneficial. If we wait another whole year, do it while it's fresh in their mind. If they need to go out and get 500 or 1,000 signatures so they can start doing it, whatever it is, I say let's do it sooner than later. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Kell?
And no offense to the ARPA funding committee, but at least with this committee, there was, with the Social Service Grant Committee and this committee, there is a scoring rubric. And to kind of throw out that, well, this isn't the right way to go sometimes, or mentality kind of almost I feel like we're getting. We had something in place. And that's part of my problem with sometimes some of the ARPA funding is that I believe we should have had a scoring rubric there, which I will bring up in the future, that if we have money that we're going to be giving out, that they all must go through a scoring rubric. But that this had a scoring rubric. It went through the process, and I think this is what we should stick with as a council. Thank you.
Any other Comments, questions? Councilmember Valdivia-Alcala?
Oh, people say I always have to have the last word, but that was some strong shade to be thrown over there, Kel, so thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Do I have a motion?
Let's move this forward.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Hiller, Councilmember Nager. All right, last comments, going once? All right, clerk would take the vote.
Councilmembers Dobler,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Duncan,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia-Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
and Nager.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
All right. Now it's action item E, for real this time. Clerk would read.
E is a resolution introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade relating to the City of Topeka's legislative agenda for the 2023 legislative session.
All right, I am chair of the Policy and Finance Committee, which passed this out again. There's only 2 updates from our last time you looked at this and we had a longer discussion on it. The first is we had in here just an update on our efforts to update the liquor law to allow for common consumption areas at other hours besides special permitting time. We did get the League of Municipalities to add that to their agenda, so it is now part of their statement of municipal policy, and we've already had discussions with legislators in other cities who are all on board with that effort. The second change that we just made, I'm actually going to turn it over to the city attorney, who will do a much better job of outlining it than I would.
The second change is one that we mentioned the last time that you guys talked about. It was a change that was requested by our prosecution office. During this last legislative cycle, the state legislature changed the mandatory imprisonment statutes for driving under the influence. So now there is no longer mandatory jail time if you are sentenced for driving under the influence. Why we mention that is because currently on the books, if you are driving on a suspended license, let's say you didn't get your notice to appear on your traffic ticket, your license got suspended, you get pulled over, you find out you have a suspended license, you have a mandatory 5-day imprisonment. So that can really cycle and get people trapped in a cycle of you can't pay off your fines and then you have 5 days in prison, so you lose your job because you have to go to jail, and it just builds on each other. So what we would like to ask the state legislature is to eliminate the mandatory jail time and give us the discretion at the local level where our prosecutors can adequately look at cases and make sure that the appropriate sentence is being done so that we don't get people trapped in the cycle of 5 days in jail for driving, trying to get to work to pay off their fine, and then 5 more days, and it becomes a really hard cycle to get out of.
Thank you. Obviously, our thoughts with including that, whether it was intended or not, probably not by the legislature, was clearly that hurts individuals who are in much different situations than others and makes their lives much more complicated. So we would like to include that. Just a reminder that while this will be our final legislative agenda, so we can start talking to our lobbyist, Mr. Dameron, as elections are next week and then the session begins, it's a living document. We can always tweak it, change it, add something later. It's not set in stone, but we would like to get it passed out tonight so we can get it out into the world and work with Mr. Dameron on it. Either comments? Councilmember Hiller?
Great job on this. I have a question for you because one of the things that I appreciate with staff is what's not on here too. We're just now finishing Karen Black's report from 2 weeks ago and all these things that maybe should have been in there or whatever. And so far, city attorney feels like we can manage most of the issues that have come up, even the ones that are affected by state law, so that's great. But if somebody does have a thought, you've got enough sections in here as well as in the league recommendations that pretty much anything anybody came up with would fit somewhere, right?
Correct, yeah.
So should people bring it to the council or just talk to city manager?
Yeah, I would start with city
if something's going to go forward on our behalf.
Right. I would start with city manager. I mean, Mr. Dameron reports to him. He makes that hire so they kind of know when things are moving fast and usually they'll send something, I think, out to the rest of us that says, hey, we really need feedback. We've talked about this. Are you okay with us submitting testimony? It's not in our document. I mean, I believe that will be the process going forward. I wanted to
ask that out loud because we'd want to know if something our name was moving forward.
And I think next year, there may be some opportunities. I think there's some housing initiatives at the state level that may come up, where we'll look at the things we're working on as we get into January and February, and may have an opportunity to say, hey, we might want to tack on to that because we have an opportunity to do something we're trying to get changed in Topeka. So we'll try to keep on top of that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No. All right. Well, with that, I would accept the motion.
Motion to approve.
Councilmember Valdivia, second by Councilmember Nager. Unless there's any other comments, go ahead and take the vote, clerk.
Deputy Mayor Duncan,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
All right. Moving on to action item F, if the clerk would read.
F is discussion and possible action of an ordinance introduced by the city manager Stephen Wade concerning procedures for prosecuting International Property Maintenance Code, IPMC, violations in municipal court, amending Topeka Municipal Code sections 240.040, 241.30, 241.80, and 242.10, 860.070, and 861.10, and 875.040, and repealing original sections and creating new sections 240.405 and 245.050.
City manager.
Actually, City Attorney Stanley will
City
lead
Attorney.
our discussion on the next 2 items.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This is an ordinance that was really a brainchild out of last December, when as a governing body, you guys were having a lot of discussions about out-of-state landlords and how do we deal with those in municipal court. And former Councilman Lesser challenged me to go figure out a solution. And so back in December, we started looking at this problem. And in municipal court, we are missing a pretty vital tool that this ordinance would give us. So currently, if you get summoned to court and you decide to not show up and you're an individual, we know who to go find. You can issue an arrest warrant. We can go find you. It's a lot harder to arrest a business. Who do you arrest? How do you get them here? And unfortunately, this is not a Topeka problem. This is a pretty national problem, the more and more we looked at it. It's a very common problem in municipal courts where out-of-state businesses simply don't respond to municipal court. They don't show up, they don't answer for their code violations. And so we thought there had to be a solution to this problem. And so we started looking for other states, other cities that had options, and we actually found our solution in the state law. And so back in the 1970s, the Kansas legislature, in their infinite wisdom, created a process for when businesses are charged with criminal offenses. How do you charge them and how do you get them there? And basically what that says is it creates this new process that we would be replicating in municipal court. So when a business is summoned to court, if they don't show up to their notice to appear, the judge would issue what is known as a show cause order, and it would be served on the registered agent. And basically what a show cause order is it does what it says. It says, come up and show us why you didn't come tell us why you didn't appear to court. If the business still does not appear to the show cause order, what it would allow the municipal court judge to do is to proceed to trial in the absence of the business. We've given you an opportunity to show up. We gave you another opportunity to show up. We satisfied all your due process to tell you that you really had to come. And if you still didn't come, then you would proceed to trial. Prosecutors would still have to prove their case. They would still have to go through all the findings. If the judge ultimately found the defendant guilty in their absence, it would proceed to a default judgment, very similar to how it is in civil courts, where then you would actually proceed to a civil judgment, and we could send them their bill, say you're found guilty, here's your bill, and then ultimately if you don't pay, it would go to collections. So the whole goal behind this is to say, we want you to come to court. We want you to answer just like any private citizen would. We expect normal people to show up. We expect businesses to show up too. So that is the overarching goal of the majority of this ordinance. The other piece also, that was written back in December. It was put on hold during the change in the culture of code. So Ms. Black could vet it. It's gone through the whole process, was in the recommended findings that she presented last week. Also in this ordinance is a section on habitual violators. This was another recommendation from Ms. Black's report. It increases penalties on habitual violators. We try really hard to avoid ever sending you to municipal court for a code case, let alone actually getting you to the point where you are found guilty of it. We tend to dismiss if you have complied. However, if you are a repeat offender, it does put in additional penalties on habitual violators. And then the last piece that this ordinance does is you have the right to appeal administrative hearing orders. So we have an administrative judge. If you go to that, you have the right to appeal to district court. State law says that we set those guidelines for appeal, as in we set how long you have to appeal. We've just never done that in the city of Topeka, so it allows you to file an appeal and then never do anything with it, which can cause a real problem with the demolition of a building, for instance, if an appeal is just pending over in district court and they never have to actually proceed on it. So this sets timelines on there, so if you file an appeal, you actually have to advance it, or within so many days it's dismissed so that we can continue with the demolition of the building. And so I know there's a lot in there. It was before the Public Health and Finance Committee who have looked at this, but I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you. I like the part that we're going after habitual violators. I did receive an email today from one of my constituents. So are you saying this is only for, Amanda, this is only for businesses? Is that correct?
The first part about show cause orders for businesses, the habitual violator would be any habitual violator, a person or a business.
Right, but I'm saying you want to change this for businesses only, because she's saying she's a landlord and she has faithfully, okay, so she had some issues with her house that was built in 1937. And she had to find somebody to patch and fix stucco, let alone try to find someone affordable. I contacted at least 12 people and finally found someone out of Kansas City to do the job. So what she's saying is she's asking is this going to be a hardship on the landlords that are already here and the residents that are trying to do what they need to do. Are we working with those people? She said she after 60, after 60, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read this really quick.
It's okay.
She had to go to court, and the code officer told her that she wouldn't have to go to court, but she ended up having to go to court. My code compliance guy reassured me that the file on our case would show that we were complying and we'll probably get another 60 days to complete the project. This is the most stressful thing I've had to deal with during my husband's deployment of the year. This is what, what kind of frustrates me is like, if we can show that they're making improvement on their property and something's being done, why do they even have to go to court to say that? You know, why aren't they being given more time and more time and more time?
So generally, on average, before it ever goes to court, it's about 9 to 12 months of working with them outside the court process before it ever goes to court. And then even when it does go to court, we routinely work with businesses. We grant continuance after continuance, and we normally dismiss the case if it is fixed. It is very rare that anyone actually proceeds to a guilty trial. Our goal is always compliance, and we work very hard to get compliance, and if someone is working with us, it is very rare that we proceed to municipal court.
But do they have to go to court, Amanda, and say, hey, this is what I've done so far? And then, and like she said, she's seen an elderly couple. One of them had a cane who was struggling to find a painter. Right now, times are hard. I have called 3 people on my bathroom. I've had 3 people come, and still my bathroom has not been fixed. And I hope I'm not out of compliance, because you know what? I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to rip it out myself. But what I'm saying is, right now, nobody wants to work. So what are we doing to help these people that really, really want to fix their issue?
I think it's a balancing act, and I'll let the other councilwomen who have been working on this answer this. But it is a balancing act because, especially as a landlord, we have obligations to the tenants if things are not fixed. So,
I understand that.
we do work really hard with people that are working and actively working to fix things, but at some point, if things are not progressing, you do take it to the next step.
I understand that, but what I want to know is if I vote on this tonight, am I making that more aggressive than what it already is? To a point, I know I am, but what are we doing as a city to help that?
I think there's an answer for that in a second. Let me let Councilmember Kell speak, and then you can hear from the two folks who've been working on this. Councilmember Kell.
Just some questions on the ordinance itself. Line 72 and line 75. The ordinance on cigarette and tobacco infraction and ordinance traffic infraction. Just kind of, how does that tie into?
That's not it. Yes, it's in the ordinance, because when you amend the section of the code, all the existing law stays in place. But that is current law, so that's not changing. So the new language is the stuff that's underlined, and the stuff that's deleted is the stuff that's X'd out. So this is just because that's where in the code that is.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I was a little confused on why those two things are dealing with buildings, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember Valdivia-Alcala.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I hope that Councilwoman Hiller will give a little feedback on this as well. But with the moves that have been diligently and proactively addressed by consultant Karen Black, who is a civil rights lawyer, a fair housing lawyer, who worked for HUD, and I would just encourage all colleagues to watch the last year worth of meetings or look at the minutes. This is going to make things better for those that cannot afford it, not more difficult. This is going to be punitive with those that thumb their noses at the city. A lot of those are outside, out-of-state landlords or folks that just don't care about what kind of conditions that they rent to people. And this is going to actually be more just, which it states in the meetings and in the reports that you all were given, because what Karen Black recommended was for a housing navigator to come in and work as a part of code compliance. And I really hope, since that was one of her big recommendations, I hope that the city manager, I hope that we as a council can find money for that position, because what that is going to do is help folks that cannot and cannot afford, nor should they be in court, to maneuver the system to be able to find the help that they need to get their code issues addressed. So to me, that does not smack of punitive, that does not smack of aggressive. What that does speak to is that it means a more just process. And I don't know if there's anything else, Councilwoman Hiller, because I know that you know the ins and out of it a lot more than I do.
If I may.
Hiller, yep.
Going back to your question, Councilwoman Ortiz, you asked, this person that you were talking to is not a chronic violator. This is just somebody who's having problems getting one house fixed. If you think about what City Attorney discussed, the issue here is folks who are in business or have the means otherwise to take care of these properties, and there are multiple offenses. So habitual offender doesn't mean that it's taking you a while to get done. It means you keep doing it again and again and again with different properties, or the same property if it comes to, usually it won't turn around quickly, like in the course of a year, unless it's mowing or something like that. The issue is, and we're sitting in a situation right now which is unlike what we typically have, where we've got some apartment complex owners who have multiple properties who are letting people live in total substandard conditions, and then they're evicting them when the people finally run out of steam and their lease, and because they've been getting extensions and extensions in the court and don't see any penalties, and then when their lease runs out, they say, no, heck no, I'm not going to sign another lease, and then the landlords evict them for holding over with no consequences right now. It's not good. And so backing up a little bit to this whole challenge that we've taken on with about 100 moving parts in it, of changing our culture of property maintenance. As I mentioned earlier when we were doing the mowing, we've got two tracks running here. We've got a policy and procedures track that will probably take us 5 years to get all the pieces in place and tested and get that well-oiled machine that we want to have going. Meanwhile, we're working on the action pieces as well. These are the first two out of the chute. As City Attorney Stanley said, she has had these pieces drafted since last December, but wanted to wait and consult with consultant Karen Black through that process, and we just got that last week. These are the first two pieces of policy to come out of that major initiative. Both of them we've been aware of as a Public Health and Safety Committee. We saw them early on, but then we did brief everybody up again on the 14th of October and discuss them, both the court procedures, which is following this one, and the these are really both court procedure bills, and felt that they could stand alone and that we were ready to move them forward so that staff had those court procedures in place, not just for the rental issues, but other issues that come up in municipal court. So, and just to cover a couple technicalities, if somebody does read all those minutes, we did have those two meetings to make sure we'd given due diligence to these issues on the 14th of October, and again, after Karen Black presented on the 25th. Because knowing that we were going to try and get these pushed out, we were already set for the 1st of November. We affirmatively went out of our way to check with the Apartment Council of Topeka, the Shawnee County Landlords Association, and the one private landlord who actually is an LLC, some of them are, who hit the top 10 last year with habitual violations, to make sure they were aware this was coming through and see if they had any problems with it. And the response was, if there are people that can afford to take care of these places, that are in business to do it, and they're just chronic, and they do it, they are negligent on multiple properties, we got no problem with that, please move forward. And we did have two people, again, full disclosure, who, due to last minute circumstances, were not able to attend our meeting on the 25th. And we sent this forward conditionally on their concurrence, which we did get. That's Councilman Duncan and Councilman Dobler, if you want to double check. So we really feel like these two pieces can stand alone. We are looking, as Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala said, at making that balance, at taking care of the people and giving them time. We will, for those who need some help or need some time, we are still looking at, we have under open consideration some of the standard operating procedures that code is using. We will continue to look at these and take as much time as it takes to make sure that all the pieces are working together. Again, these are just the first two out of the chute, but City Attorney felt like we really needed them, and we all felt like they could stand alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's more questions of me, I'm happy to try and answer them as well.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Deputy Mayor?
Yep.
I'm not saying not to go after the habitual violators. I'm not saying not to go after the people that don't care, that quote unquote snub their nose or whatever, but there's a lot of people that just, all they want is simply time. And that's what she said here. She kept her code compliance guy in the loop, and imagine how I felt when we received a criminal complaint to appear in multiple court. You know, I just dealt with a building that was over a year, and they keep graffitiing in the building, as guy had COVID, and he couldn't get him there to paint, and you know, the prosecution, they were ready to take him, and you know, sometimes all these people are asking for is just time, and I think as long as the ball is rolling and we can see the ball rolling, I don't see why we should have to drag them in court. I think we should give them time, you know, because they're the ones that suffer. You know, it took over a year to get this building, and the building looks great. And people would probably say this guy's a habitual because he owns a lot of property and he can't get to it all at one time. You know, he said he's explained that to our judges. So that's all I was looking for. Is there something in there to help these people that are doing what they did? Her cost was $14,500, and that wasn't an issue. The issue was finding somebody do it right and to do stucco. You know, there's a certain part of the time of the year that they have to do it. So I think it would just make it much easier because we know who those repeat offenders are. We know who those people are that don't care and that are not going to care. And so I was just wondering, is there a way to separate that? That was my question. Thank you.
I'll just add, I'll add a quick comment here and then a couple things. I think over time, as city attorney said, most of those cases don't end up getting guilty. In fact, it's a 9 to 12 month process to start with, and then the judges traditionally give extensions. And I'll bet this individual hasn't reached that point yet because we do continue to work with them. Part of the problem we have is we can't spend a significant amount of time on these problem cases because they hit this wall time and time again. And so we're going back down to okay, I guess we'll spend our time on some of those other cases that you're talking about, Councilmember Ortiz. And this is one of many tools I think you're going to see brought forward over the next 6 months that allow us both, whether it's the courts, whether it's our code compliance officers, to finally say, thank you for the tools to deal with the problems that are finding the loopholes in this system. And it's as you said, I think we could our community could probably name the handful of landlords that continue. We all throw our hands up and say, how are they continuing to own all these properties and do all this damage? So the 90% of you out there who are good, please, you can email me and that's fine. I know I get those emails every time. We're not coming after you and you're gonna be just fine. But that 10% is a problem and they account for a majority of our violations. And we are hitting roadblocks and taking the next level to hold them accountable. And that's what these two things are meant to do. And so I hope that those folks, because they know who they are, and anyone else who's in that vein pays attention to what we're trying to do tonight and pays real close attention to what happens over the next few months as we bring all the hard work that these two council members and others have done. Because I think if you read the tea leaves, our patience is gone. And we have got to do something to make inroads on those horrible offenders, and that's where this comes from. Having sat in those meetings and read those documents and read the report, I am fairly confident I can tell you, Councilmember Ortiz, your constituent is not going to be the target or be an issue if we pass this tonight. Any other comments or questions? If not, I would always take a motion.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any other comments before we vote? If not, Kirk will take the vote, please.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Hale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yeah.
and Deputy Mayor Duncan.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
All right. Action item G, I believe it's our last action item. The clerk would read.
G is discussion and possible action of an ordinance introduced by City Manager Stephen Wade concerning municipal court costs and fees, amending sections 240.010 and 325.130 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original section.
City Attorney.
Okay, this ordinance in front of you is a direct recommendation from Ms. Black's report that she gave you, I believe, last week. If not, it was a couple weeks ago. In it, one of the things that she pointed out is that we do expend a significant amount of time on these code cases because we are trying to achieve compliance, and then because we don't want you to have to proceed to trial if we've complied, those cases are ultimately dismissed. Under our current code, municipal court costs are only applied if you are found guilty. So she recommended that the city look at applying court costs to cases that are also dismissed. We looked at what other cities in Kansas do. Wichita, for example, applies court costs to every case that comes to municipal court, except if you are actually acquitted. So if it's dismissed, if you take a diversion, if you do anything, they apply court costs. And looking at that, we just didn't think that was a good fit for our philosophy as a city in general. If someone accidentally parks in the handicap tag and I forget my hang placard and I get a ticket and I go in and show you I have a hang placard, we didn't think you really should have to pay court costs on that. So what we tried to do was find an appropriate balance to do what the recommendation has said without accidentally looping in all these other people. And so this is a very narrow ordinance that would add the $72 court cost 2 cases that are dismissed because of compliance. Obviously, that does not even remotely recoup the cost of the city in prosecuting these kind of cases, but it would help to recoup some of those costs for dismissals. And the councilwomen that have worked extensively on this report probably have additional information if they would like.
Councilmember Dobler?
I guess, maybe let Councilwoman speak, and then I'll
Okay.
ask a question.
Okay, great.
It may get answered in the process.
I was just going to speak to clarify her Councilwoman Ortiz's questions and challenges a little.
To speak to Councilwoman Ortiz's questions and challenges a little bit earlier, city attorney is talking about items that go to court. We right now have a lot of flexibility. If somebody gets written up in code, the inspector themselves, by our standard procedures now, can give an extension and can give additional ones with supervisory approval. We also have an administrative hearing officer process whereby if somebody disagrees with what was written up in the first place, they can appeal as to whether the write-up was correct, whether there really are other alternatives, or whether the timing was right. So we have those 2 layers for somebody who is determined to try and work on their property, to continue working on it, keep in touch with those folks if needed, if it's taking time, and never get to the court situation. So I wanted to simply put that in at this point.
Okay. Councilmember Dobler?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we're saying somebody has a violation, they get cited, they fix the problem so it doesn't go through the court process. They still owe the $72. Reimburse the city for the minute amount of time that they've expended getting to that point.
Correct. I think what Ms. Black found is that, no, it's always dangerous when I talk off the top of my head, but cases routinely get continued more than once. So you're coming to court multiple times showing if you've made progress. Ultimately, if you've met progress, our prosecutors dismiss the case rather than have a conviction because we just want you to comply with it. But this would reimburse a portion of that and assess those costs.
And again, the judge has a lot of latitude in dismissing that.
Yes, and actually, even in this, I forgot to mention it, that's a really good point. We wrote into this provision that the municipal court judge can dismiss even these court costs upon a showing of manship hardship. So if there's a poverty waiver, if it's a true hardship to pay the $72, the municipal court judges have the discretion to waive it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Other questions or comments on this? Not? Want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion? Have a second? Second by Councilmember Nager. If there's no other thoughts or comments, then I will ask the clerk to take the vote.
Councilmembers Valdivia Acqua,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Hale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Duncan,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hiller.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, motion carries.
Double check, those are all our action items as I see them, correct? I'm not missing anything? All right, well, with that, we'll move to public comment. I have 2 people listed here this evening. The first is Jennifer Lee Davis. Would you like to come up to the podium? Thank you for being here. I think you've been here before, but you know, it'll tell you your timer there, and it'll beep once before you still have 1 minute, so the first beep is not the end of your night.
Yeah, it won't take that long.
Make sure.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Lee Davis. Now you can put a face with the emails. Over the past few years, I have watched some very extraordinary citizens fight for a better city. Some have put countless hours into research. Some have gathered other citizens to get their thoughts. Some have put together community meetings, which I had the honor of attending some of those. Most of you were noticeably absent. Some of these folks have continuously come here, right here, with their research suggestions on how to address the issues in the city. These extraordinary citizens were manipulated into thinking you all appreciated the information gathering, the community thoughts, and even the ways to implement said changes. Instead, none of the suggestions, hard work, nor love for this community mattered. I did not come here today to sign up for any meritless committees or advisory councils. The research has been done, and you've seen it. You may not have considered it, but it was provided to you. As of today, I'm done talking, rather begging you all to listen or to care about your constituents. You were asked, proof was handed to you more than once. You chose to only listen to your local police gang. You chose to put them on a pedestal. You chose to allow another homicide at the hands of the police. You chose to make this city a city that is run by law enforcement. The blood of your constituents is on your hands. These are all the emails that I've sent and your responses. It seems with every avoidable tragedy, they will come in more handy. There will be no denying what you all did and continue to do here, which is nothing.
Thank you for your comments. Second member I have, citizen, is Danielle Twemlow.
Thank you. My point tonight is to hopefully bring across the real urgency to be transparent in the processes that move forward. It's been a couple weeks now since we've heard a brief discussion that the Department of Justice has been called in, or cases referred on, or however that may be. The point being, we don't really know anything. If the reason is we as a community don't know more about what this process looks like, because maybe you don't know what that process looks like, that's also a problem. This should be a big concern of yours, where you are constantly trying to find out what's happening next. Has the Department of Justice responded? What does this process look like? Where's the transparency? What is the scope and depth of this review? This is how the community stays informed, how we get trust in this process. This isn't a pointing game. This is something that we deserve to know, and yet have not had any points of that. And I kind of briefly was thinking as I was sitting there, it's much like a sports game, right? Like many of you have probably had a favorite team that you weren't able to sit down and watch because you had to be somewhere else, another commitment, a meeting, a family event. But you pull out your phone and you're checking your app, or you're asking other people while you're there, you know, what's the score, what's the update, because you want to know your favorite team if they're winning. You're not waiting until the game's over to find the final score, you're getting updates. You don't do so probably on teams that you really don't care about. You probably wait to read it in the paper. So by ignoring the process as it goes on, by not getting updates of what this process should look like and giving it to the community, you're really just sending a message that you don't care about that process or that outcome. But we do. We've been asking for it. We've been demanding it. Many people have come forward to state this is a concern, a priority to us. And as council members, as city manager, we're needing you to get that information to us, and you have that ability. So we want to know what that process looks like. We want to be informed. We want to know the scope of that, and we expect that accountability. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else signed up? I just want to make sure I missed anybody. All right. With that, we will move on to announcements. Councilmember Hiller.
Thank you. First comment out to both city staff as well as contractors is that 12th Street, cleaned up, striped, and sodded, looks really great. I've sent a direct email, but it's still just a little bit past west of Washburn that it's pretty much all put back together, but it makes a big difference, and we all appreciate it. Wanted to point out that Bethany Gardens were dedicated, I think, last Friday. That's the Episcopal Archdiocese of Kansas property that's between Grace Cathedral and Topeka High. Just so everyone knows, it's beautiful. They've had a tremendous amount of input. They've hired a person from the historic Old Town neighborhood to be the garden manager there. It is open to the public at any time, and it is a wonderful place for just refuse and kind of refuge and nourishment. They've done a phenomenal job, including a whole garden that's reflective of St. Simon's Church, which was the all-black Episcopal Church on 8th Street. So kudos to them. I'm going to be sending around to all of you. I sat in on a webinar yesterday by the Urban Institute called Capital for Communities Scorecard. And Danielle, I'm going to send it over to the Facebook page too. It's a really fine tool that's been developed by cities that, the Urban Institute itself, but this particular scorecard is to measure the impact on the community, and is it the desired impact, more jobs, more economic development or not for the people that are close by? What are we saying we want to do, and is that happening? And I think it's a real exciting tool, and the people that were involved are pretty sharp. And it spurred out of opportunity zone evaluations. And of course, an opportunity zone is what we just overlaid with the South Topeka TIF district, and it goes through downtown and North Topeka. So we have a substantial opportunity zone area that we could perhaps learn from in terms of tools and measurements. Also, I don't know why I've managed to find the time, but I went to a book signing for new release of a book called Reconstructing Inclusion last week. The author is Omri Johnson, who is the son of Harriet and Larry Johnson, who many people know. He grew up here. He's living actually in Switzerland right now, but it is a very insightful look at diversity and inclusion in communities, and a kind of a fresh approach that people haven't seen very much. And so hats off to him, and copies are available. And last, just make sure you vote, everyone, and kudos to everybody who's worked so hard on Get Out to the Vote efforts.
I forgot the city clerk and the city manager. That's why I'm just the deputy mayor, not the regular
All
mayor.
right.
So.
Well, they can give you the good stuff
now. And the city manager.
Actually, there is no meeting November 8th. It's canceled due to elections.
City manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have some kudos to go out to some staff members. We actually have 3 individuals that are graduating from the Latino Leadership Collaborative. Those individuals are Maria Anderson, John Munoz, and James Cuevas. This graduation ceremony takes place November 19th. Super excited about those 3 accomplishments. I'm also happy to share that Director Davis in the audience and the mayor's wife, Veronica Padilla, are facilitators with that situation. So super happy there. We have applications for District 9. Anybody interested in that? Need to go to City Hall, first floor. The city clerk would be happy to take those applications. And the last thing I would have for you, Deputy Mayor, is we have had some conversations about not holding the December 20th governing body meeting due to the holidays. Given the December 6th interviews that will take place, I think that's probably going to slow us down a little bit. And so please hold the December 20th meeting. Keep it on your calendars.
Mr. City Manager, when will the applications be accepted till for the open position?
So the vacancy will start November 7th through the November 21st. So there'll be two consecutive weeks. It will publish on November 7th in Topeka Metro News. And all those applications are submitted to the clerk's office.
There's also a website now?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And all of that information is posted on the city's website. So topeka.org under the city clerk's page. It has detailed information of how you can apply.
All right, anything else, City Manager? All right. Councilmember Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just wanted to remind everybody to also get out and vote. And I wanted to let folks know that I too have deep, deep concerns about the number of killings and shootings with our police department. I did notify myself individually, the Department of Justice on October 14th. I have yet to receive any kind of notification. I went and pursued a different numbers to call. And I will tell you, something appears to have changed within the Department of Justice, because folks that I know that sat in these chairs years ago in the 90s, early 2000s, whatever, it was much easier. Now it feels like it almost goes into a void. Every consecutive number I called within the state or federally, I was referred to another number and then another number and then to voicemail. I have not, again, received a response. When I receive a response, I will be transparent and share that with community. And I know that it seems odd to me sitting here sometimes at this seat, because I remember in 2017 when there was the shooting of Dominique White, and coming up to the podium as a concerned citizen, and was part of those meetings that were had at the library, were part of putting these listening sessions together. And I remember you could just see it happen. Information was taken. People were just hungry to get their information out, their beliefs on what was going on, what needed to change, et cetera, et cetera. And while there was some committees that were formed out of those initial meetings, what you can see, and I don't know if it's intentional, I know it's a political process, that what you see is when there is activists or when there is a real charge by public outcry for some kind of change, it gets absorbed into the system. And what happens is a lessening of impact of what those words and what the cries actually mean, because they are absorbed. When you get up to higher levels of politics, you'll see activists end up getting positions at higher levels, and all of a sudden their voice is muted, right? Because they become part of the system. So I understand the activists, the advocates, the average citizens that are coming and actually have many people behind them, but those people have given up, or those people are too afraid to come up, or those people really don't have the time to come up because they're just trying to make a living. And so I will let people know when I hear, and then I will push for more answers, because people are right. There is not a lot of answers on these things. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to wish my daughter a happy birthday. Today's November 1st. I refuse to have her on Halloween, so happy birthday tonight and many more. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Kell.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this Saturday is the Veterans Day Parade. It'll be held here downtown. Friday the 11th is Veterans Day. I'm a very proud veteran. I work at the VA, and I help serve other veterans. And it's something that, to me, is just a calling to join the military. And it's a sacrifice for those that were forced into the military via the draft. So I always look at every veteran with high regard, and always reach out if I feel that a veteran's in need, and always encourage any veteran to reach out to me when they're in need. And I've had that happen a couple times where people just know I'm a veteran. They get a hold of me just because they want to talk to another veteran, because we're kind of this group of people that we kind of only understand each other. So just make sure you help honor the veterans, like I said, this Saturday with the parade, and Friday the 11th. Just like everyone else has said so far, make sure you go out and vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for, just make an educated vote. Your voice matters. The smaller the election, the more your vote counts. There's been several elections throughout the years that have been decided by less than a handful of votes. So please make sure you get out and vote. And the one hot button topic that I've been seeing all today, does Christmas season start today or does it start Thanksgiving night? And I'm taking a stance. It is Thanksgiving night. I've seen it all over Facebook and Twitter. Thanksgiving season, we have a Thanksgiving season, people. So please enjoy that time with your friends and family. Don't look past Thanksgiving, and just look at the season that was coming up to spend with friends and family as a great thing, because I know certain people have to bounce between certain sides of the family each year, different holidays. So make sure you're taking the time for Thanksgiving also.
Thank you. Councilmember Nager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Surprise, I'm going to encourage people to vote, and I have a sign. This is where you can find accurate information. There has been information that has gone out to voters where they have been misinformed about where to go and practice their right to vote. So make sure that you're actually checking in with the Shawnee County Elections Office. You can vote early until next week, and then you can vote in your regular polling place on next Tuesday. Please do it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Councilmember Dobler.
I thought she was going to say vote early, vote often, but I guess that's...
I think Chicago.
Yeah. Just a quick, I want to say happy birthday. My oldest son on Monday will turn 40. You know, we hit milestones in our life. You turn 30, you turn 40 yourself, others that I won't mention that I've already hit. But there's something about your oldest kid turning 40 that kind of brings you down to earth and makes you commit to enjoying, you know, the good time that you have left, and hopefully it's many years for all of us. Thank you very much.
I think I got everybody but myself. I've got a couple things this evening. The first is, as it was mentioned, as of noon today, we are a governing body of 9, not 10. I do want to say thank you to Councilman Lesser, former councilman, for all the work he put in. I told people on social media when he announced his resignation that Mike and I are very different personalities. We agreed, we disagreed. The good thing is when we disagreed, we fought each other on it and moved on when one of us won or lost. And when we agreed, it was great. What I think none of us, all of us agree is that Mike was committed to that role. He did believe in the things he fought for and he pushed forward. And all I ask of the people who are going to apply for that is that whatever your beliefs or vision or ideas for Topeka are, is that you're as committed as to coming to this council and working with us to put them in place. Someone who's truly committed to serving on this body and improving Topeka. So I just want to say thank you to Mike for his 5 years on this council. Second thing was, there was an event today, the Equity Access Shelter announcement. She will be the first to tell you that staff deserves a lot of the credit, which is true, but Councilmember Valdivia Alcala helped put that into motion, met with the mayor and others, and sort of took one idea and it morphed into what was announced today, which will be a great program for this community. Takes sort of what we have and streamlines it into a more efficient system while enhancing, bringing in some new services and programs to help our unsheltered throughout the community and deal with some of our housing concerns. It was a nice announcement today, and I said then, as I say, repeat now, those are the kind of programs that we have to continue to work towards. You know, we're not always going to have enough money. We've got to learn to maximize what we have. We've got to be creative. We've got to be flexible. And we have to have good community partners. And that program is not going to work without good community partners, much like the mowing program that we started this evening with. Cannot succeed without good community partners. So while we at the city are happy to be the catalyst and the hub and push forward on that, we have to work with you, and we rely on you, organizations out there, to make those things happen. So thank you to everybody who was a part of that and moving forward with that program. The last thing is an update on the ARPA funds. The council Policy and Finance did make final decisions totaling exactly $10 million. We made sure no dollar was left on the table. Those recommendations I think will come, at least for discussion. I don't know if they'll be actually on the 15th. First time you'll see them. They will be made available. I believe all the applications, are they will be posted soon at some point if they're not already, so people can see what the original applications we had. Just a reminder, we had $10 million to give out. We started with 85 applications requesting almost $35 million. So those recommendations are made, though, and the goal was to get it in front of this council for a vote before the end of the year so that organizations can start January 1 knowing what's coming their way and get that work done. So with that, I believe we have need for an executive session tonight. We'll turn over to the city attorney.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations relating to a union AFT as authorized by KSA 754319B3. The following staff may be needed to assist the governing body in its deliberations: City Manager Wade and other staff he deems necessary.
Can I have a motion to move into executive session? Motion by Councilman Kell, second by Councilmember Dobler. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. We will take a 10-minute break before we go into executive session, which will mean it'll be like a 12-minute break, but you know. All right, we are live. We have come out of executive session. There's no need for any other executive session, and we have no action to take. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.